LLM-based generative AI software like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude are becoming more and more powerful by the month and offering newfangled functionality seemingly every day, it's still anything but certain these tools and the chatbots they power will take gobs of jobs from human beings. The tale that's being told by upper management at a lot of companies makes it seem like this is inevitable, though there would seem to be market incentives for them to both talk and act like this is the case. Companies that make new, splashy investments in AI tech, or which make deals with big AI companies purporting to further empower their offerings and to right-size their staff as a consequence, tend to see small to moderate bumps in their stock price. And that's good for the execs and other management in these companies, many of whom own a lot of stock or have performance incentives related to the price of their stock built into their larger pay package. But often, not always, but a lot of the time, the increased effectiveness and efficiencies claimed by these higher-ups after they go on a firing spree and introduce new AI tools seem to be at least partly, and in some cases mostly, attributable to basically just threatening their staff with being fired in the difficult labor market. When Google executives lay off 5 or 10% of their staff on a given team, for instance, and then gently urge those who survived the cull to come to the office more frequently rather than working from home, and tell them that 60 hours a week is the sweet spot for achieving their productivity goals, that will tend to lead to greater outputs, at least for a while. Same as any other industry where blood has been drawn and a threat is made if people don't live up to a casually stated standard presented by the person drawing that blood. Also worth mentioning here is that many of the people who introduced these tools, both into their own companies and into the market as a whole, seem to think most jobs can be done by AI systems, but not theirs. Many executives have outright said that future businesses will have a small number of people managing a bunch of bots at the top, and at least a few investors have said that they believe most jobs can be automated, but investing is too specialized and sophisticated, and will likely remain the domain of very smart and clever human beings like themselves. All of which gestures at what we are seeing in labor markets around the globe right now, where demands for new hires are becoming more intense and a whole lot of low-level jobs in particular are disappearing entirely. Though in most cases this is not because of AI, or not just, but instead because of automation more broadly. Something that AI is contributing to, but something that's also a lot bigger than AI. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. The rapid speed deployment, in some industries and countries at least, of automated systems, of robots basically, and how this is likely to impact the already ailing labor markets in the places that are seeing the spear point of this automation deployment. You're listening to Let's Know Things. I'm Colin Wright. I'm able to keep this show ad-free because of support from listeners like you. If you're finding value in what I'm doing here, consider becoming a paid supporter for the cost of a cup of coffee each month at letsknowthings.com. And as a thank you for your helping me keep this show solvent, you'll receive an additional bonus More Things episode each month. All right, let's get back to the show. Chatbots are AI tools that are capable of taking input from users and responding with often quite human-sounding text and increasingly audio as well. These bots are the bane of some customers who are looking to speak to a human about some unique need or problem, but who are instead forced to run a gauntlet of AI-powered bots. The interaction often happens in the same little chat window through which they'll eventually, if they say the right magic words, reach a human being capable of actually helping them. And like so many of the AI innovations that have become broadly deployed at this point, this is a solution that is generally hated by customers, but lauded and celebrated by the folks who run these companies, because it saves them a lot of money if they can hire fewer human beings to handle support tickets, even if those savings are the result of more people giving up before successfully navigating the AI maze and reaching a human customer support worker. In India right now, the thriving call center industry is seeing early signs of disruption from the same. IT training centers in particular are experimenting with using audio-capable AI chatbots instead of human employees, in part because demand is so high, but also increasingly because doing so is cheaper than hiring actual human beings to do the same work. One such company, LimeChat, recently said that it plans to cut its employee base by 80% in the near future. And if that experiment is successful, this could ripple through India's $283 billion IT sector, which accounts for 7.5% of India's GDP. Hiring growth in this sector already collapsed in 2024 and 2025, and again, while this shift seems to be pretty good for the balance books of the companies doing less hiring and more firing as they deploy more AI systems, it is very not good for the often young people who take these jobs having specialized in call center IT work, only to find that the market no longer demands their skill sets. Along the same lines, but in perhaps a more surprising industry, some convenience stores in Japan are deploying robots to manage their back rooms, where the products that end up available out front are unloaded and tallied and shelved. These robots, which are basically just arms on poles, sometimes attached to little wheeled bases for moving around, are operated by AI, but are also continuously monitored by human employees based in the Philippines. Each worker, who can be paid a lot less than an entry-level young Japanese person who would expect to be paid quite a bit more, monitors 50 machines at a time and steps in using virtual reality gear to control the robots if one of them gets stuck or drops something, which apparently happens around 4% of the time at this point. This is akin to offshoring of the kind that we've seen since the early 2000s, when the dawn of technological globalization made China the factory of the world, and when everything shifted from model of local production and the stockpiling of components and products to a last-minute supply chain-oriented model that allowed companies to move all of their manufacturing and some of their services to wherever in the world it could be done the cheapest. Many people and companies benefited from this arbitrage to some degree, though many regions have dried up as a result of this shift. Because, for instance, a former company town where cars were produced no longer has the resources to keep infrastructure from degrading, and no longer has enough jobs to keep young people from moving away. Brain drain can become pretty intense pretty quickly when there's no economic reason to stay in an area. This reality is expected to become more widespread, even beyond former manufacturing hubs, because of the deployment of both AI systems, which can be subbed in for many remote jobs like call center work and programming and the like, but also because of increasingly sophisticated and capable robots, which can do more automated work, which in turn allows them to be monitored, sometimes remotely, like those Japanese convenience store robots, for a fraction of the price of hiring a human being. This shift is expected to be especially harrowing for teens hoping to enter the labor market in entry-level jobs, as responsibilities like shelf stocking and product scanning and the loading and unloading of materials are increasingly automatable, as robots capable of doing this work are developed and deployed, and perhaps even more importantly, as systems that augment that automation are developed and deployed. In practice, that means coming up with shipping processes and other non-tangible systems that lean into the strengths of today's automated robots while reducing the impact of their weaknesses. Amazon is in a prime position to do exactly this, as they have already done so much to rewire global shipping channels so that they can deliver products as rapidly as possible to as many places as possible. As a result, they control many of the variables within these channels already, which in turn means they can tweak them further so that they are optimized to work with Amazon's specialized automated systems rather than just Amazon's human-oriented systems. The company has stated in internal documents that it plans to automate 75% of its total operations, and it currently has nearly 1.2 million employees. That is triple what it employed in 2018, and it's expected that the automated systems it has already and will soon deploy will allow it to hire 160,000 fewer people than planned by 2027. Even though the company expects to sell twice as many products by 2033 then, it expects to hire 600,000 fewer people by that same year. And it is so confident in its ability to make this happen that it's already making plans to rebuild its image in the aftermath of what is expected to be a really difficult period of public perception and people hating it, basically. It is planning significant rebranding efforts meant to help it seem like a good corporate citizen, including sponsoring community events and huge donations to children's programs and charities. It's also intending to frame this shift as an evolution in which robots are amplifying the efforts of human employees, not replacing human employees. Rather than calling their automated systems robots, for instance, they might call them cobots. Amazon has contended that the internal documents in which these plans were outlined, those documents acquired and reported upon by the New York Times, are incomplete and not an accurate representation of what Amazon plans. And they said those branding efforts are not a response to potential hate related to their automation efforts. They just like to spend money on nice things for communities. The net impact of existing efforts of this kind, though, is to deplete local job markets where these big companies dominate, and to make the jobs that survive a lot higher end, often requiring more technical sophistication, like being able to manage and maintain these sorts of robots, which are skills that few people currently have. Amazon's backend is already very automated, powered by bots originally developed by robotics maker Kiva, which was purchased by the company for $750 million back in 2012. Amazon warehouse workers now work alongside all sorts of robots, though as seems to be the case with employees who survive AI-related firings, those humans who remain are often subjected to strenuous conditions and a lot of pressure to work long hours. In the company's Shreveport, Louisiana location, there are more than 1,000 robots working around the clock, and that has allowed Amazon to hire 25% fewer human workers at that facility, while processing 10% more items. The plan is to further refine that model while also spreading it to other Amazon warehouse locations, 40 more Amazon locations by 2027, which is part of how they expect to reach that aforementioned 75% employee reduction goal. Amazon's obviously at the forefront of this shift because of the nature of their business and business model and the investments that they've already made, but other big employers, such as Walmart, are also pushing in this direction. Walmart officials have said that they will cut costs by more than 30% at facilities where they've been experimenting with more automation by the end of 2025. And they've already cut those costs by 20% at these facilities, in part because fewer human employees are necessary at those facilities. All of which is interesting, in part because these are clearly real innovations that are leading to more efficiency and effectiveness in some cases at lower costs. And ultimately, these may translate into cheaper goods and services for customers if the companies deploying automated technologies in this way decide to pass on those savings rather than just pocketing all of them. But simultaneously, this represents a fundamental shift in the job market and overall economy. And if new jobs don't arrive at the same scale and pace as they are disappearing, or if some other money distribution solution like a minimum basic income doesn't arrive in time, we could find ourselves in a situation globally, but especially and most immediately in markets like China, which has by far more automation than everyone else right now, and in places like the United States, we could have a situation where there's just a lot of stuff being made, but not enough people who can afford it, because they can't find jobs that will pay them enough to participate in the economy, which in turn could lead to a negative splashback effect on these automative measures and the companies deploying them, because these companies' addressable markets could shrink. The book I'd like to recommend today is called The Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton. I picked up this book because it's a newer novel by the author of Mickey 7, which I think became a movie called Mickey 17, but I really enjoyed Mickey 7, and this book is quite different from Mickey 7, but it has some of the same dark humor and futuristic settings as that other novel. And the basic premise of this novel is that the protagonist is a first contact employee who is in charge of introducing a particular faction in the greater universe of beings that are traveling from planet to planet to planet, trying to sell their model of doing things to alien life forms, and in doing so, having to operate as something like a diplomat, something like a salesperson, but also something like a veiled threat. A sort of comedy of errors and mistranslation and misunderstanding of local customs and culture ensues, and the book is basically a whole lot of fun, very interesting and speculative, and does a good job of embedding some very deep and tricky questions into a fairly adventuresome, but also, again, darkly funny story. Now, if any of that sounds interesting to you, consider picking up a copy of The Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton. Let's Know Things is a listener-supported show. I don't make any money from ads, only what listeners contribute by becoming paid supporters at letsknowthings.com. If you're not in the position to become a paid supporter at the moment, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your pods. Those help get the show in front of more people and lend a hint of credibility to independently made shows like this one. A huge thanks in advance, whatever shape your support might take.